MC for the evening, Rochelle.
Thank you, Greta, for putting it together a very meaningful event. On behalf of myself and the organizers, I want to welcome all of you for honoring to the Honoring Survivors Candlelight Vigil. Tonight's vigil is about honoring our fellow Tennesseans, friends, family, and neighbors who have been victims of sexual violence, domestic violence, or hate violence. Whether it be racism, misogyny, xenophobia, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, or anti-LGBTQ violence. Violence can affect all segments of our communities, regardless of the color of their skin or how much money someone has or where they come from. This is why the organizers desperately tried to include the voices of individuals from various communities and political parties. For the most part, we were successful, but not totally. We repeatedly contacted Representatives Sexton and Lambert and asked them to speak this evening. Unfortunately, they, along with TNGOP Chairman Scott Golden, never responded to our requests. Unfortunately, and although we are disappointed they chose not to join us and listen to the stories of their fellow citizens, we are very honored to have a distinguished and a diverse group of speakers and performers with us this evening. Some of our speakers will be sharing details of their experience with violence. If you're triggered and need assistance, go to the RASAC table, RASAC, or a designated street medic. And so our first speaker today is Representative Gloria Johnson. And Representative Johnson, okay, great. She's a 27-year veteran of the Knox County school system and was instrumental in helping South Doyle High School earn the distinction of being a school of promise. As someone who has spent much of her life dedicated to helping children, it's no surprise she has been a fierce advocate in the fight for protecting children from sexual predators. During this session of the General Assembly, Representative Johnson was a strong and defiant voice, refusing to back down no matter how many times some of the leadership tried to silence her. Woo! And you know, I have this t-shirt on. It's called Unsilence the Violence. It's part of the Amend, YWCA's Amend Together. And they showcase this every year during the One Predators game. And how important it is to make sure our voices are heard and to be mindful of every slightest word that's said, anything that's demeaning, that will marginalize, in this case, women, because it starts from those words that we say that ends up with having victims and casualties and all these statistics that we see. 3 women a day losing their lives to domestic violence, 1 in 4 being victims of domestic violence, and Tennessee ranking 5th in the country at the rate of which women lose their lives to domestic violence. So again, related to people trying to silence Representative Gloria Johnson, we appreciate her standing strong and speaking out. And so it is my great honor to introduce Representative Gloria Johnson.
Thank you guys. These things are never tall enough for me. I'm so happy to be here and to be with you guys, and those words were correct. Some people ask me why, why am I continuing to persist? Why is it so important to me? For a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons is 30 years working with kids who had emotional issues and behavioral issues because they were abused, sexually abused and molested. And so I've seen what it does to young people's lives, and I've seen that it can carry throughout their lives. And if we are not standing up and doing everything we can to make sure that predators and child molesters are not elevated to higher office and those sorts of positions where they continue to have power and control over laws that affect victims, laws that affect our students, we absolutely have to do the right thing. I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening. In the last few days, there's been quite a flurry of activity because of this bill. It's very clear that they do not want to see my resolution come to the floor. They did not put it on the calendar, the regular calendar. There's no reason. They are saying because it's not congratulatory, but that is not. They've done it before, so it's not the actual reason. That's just an excuse. That's one more of the excuses that I've been given. What I'm told is that I need to make a motion during unfinished business, but I've also heard that they might try to adjourn before unfinished business. So what I'm going to try to do is make the motion to be heard at the very beginning of unfinished business. I have a feeling that they might call on one of their members first who will move to adjourn. If they do that, our folks will jump up, object, all of those things. I would like to think that this new speaker, who said that he was not going to have a kill list like the former Speaker Cassida, he wasn't going to do that. And so what I challenge to him is, this is the test. Are you going to be a man of your word, or are you going to be a liar on day one? Because if he doesn't hear my bill, he just killed a bill. If he doesn't hear my resolution, that's him killing a bill, which goes against what he said that was printed in the Memphis paper, that he was not going to have a kill list. So we're going to try to hold him to that. I need you guys to be there, as many people who can be there as possible. I can't tell you how many people have come to me just in the last week to let me know that they suffered abuse as a child, some as adult, but some as a child, and that they hadn't talked about it before. And I was so honored that they trusted me enough to come and tell me those stories. And I just can't imagine not being able to speak for those folks tomorrow, because these voices are critical. We have to show that we honor, respect, and value children in this state and the victims of assault. And we have to hear their voice. There are many, far more than most people understand. And folks would like to sweep it under the rug, and they'd like for this resolution to go away. But we have got a man who has been credibly accused by 3 women, and in detail of what they experienced with him. As an educator, someone who knows that trusted position of a teacher or a coach in your school, for some kids that's all they have. And we have got to just be totally above board. But when you look at some of the testimony from these victims and how basketball might have been a way out for some folks, a chance at a scholarship. But then you get a reputation for being uncoachable because your coach did the unthinkable. And you've kind of lost that drive and that ability, and maybe you've lost a scholarship because of that. The betrayal is deep, and the guilt, many of the people I've talked to talk about the guilt that they feel for letting it happen or for not telling. You guys, we have got to stand up. We have to raise these voices. I am trying to raise your voices. I will continue to raise your voices. I will do everything possible to get this heard on the floor tomorrow. And here's the thing. If they don't hear either my motion to expel Representative Byrd or my resolution to expel Representative Byrd tomorrow, they will hear it day 1 in January. And that is a promise.
Thank you so much, Representative Johnson. And please know we're here for anything we can do to show support. We have next Alex Chambers, who's a survivor of domestic violence and a founding member of Free Hearts, a Nashville-based organization led primarily by formerly incarcerated women, organizing support for incarcerated mothers and their children. She is an organizer of the Love and Justice Project, which is an initiative of Free Hearts that is focused on ending the criminalization of survivors in Tennessee. Join me in welcoming Alex Chambers.
I'm grateful to be here tonight on behalf of Free Hearts and the Love and Justice Project to help us bring into this space those survivors of domestic and sexual violence who cannot be here and are too often forgotten because they are in Tennessee jails, prisons, and detention centers. There are countless survivors like Centoya Brown Long who remain incarcerated and more who continue to face prosecution across the state. The majority of people in women's prisons are survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And as we've seen with the juvenile detention center David Byrd has a financial investment in, jails and prisons further abuse and victimize survivors and create even more by institutionalizing coercive control and sexual assault, the very violence we are fighting to end. We lift up and hold in this space those survivors whose names we know as well as those we don't, who are criminalized for their survival. We reject false narratives of the perfect victim, which exclude the most marginalized survivors who are also those most likely to be criminalized because they are Black, undocumented, poor, transgender, substance using, disabled, or have conviction histories. We know that there are no perfect victims, just survivors with complex and nuanced lives who need and deserve healing, not punishment. I invite you to join me in calling for an end to the prosecution and incarceration of survivors in Tennessee, and to name and bear witness to just some of those who have been blamed and are being punished for the violence of another. Shantonio Hunter is a mother survivor from Nashville who was prosecuted for the death of her 3-year-old son Elijah because she was unable to control the violence of her abuser. He grievously harmed her son, minimized the harm he had done, and did not permit her to call help. She is currently serving 28 years in prison. Shantonio Hunter, we will not allow you to be forgotten or disappeared. We honor you and your survival. Kendra Tweed is a mother survivor from Greenville, Tennessee. While she was working the night shift, 2 of her daughters died at the hands of her abuser. She was charged with murder and pled to facilitation of child abuse and neglect, and remained separated by incarceration from her only living child. Kendra Tweed, we will not allow you to be forgotten or disappeared. We honor you and your survival. Aaron Daly's abuser shot and wounded a police officer and then turned the gun on himself. She was arrested for attempted homicide and recently convicted by a Davidson County jury for aggravated. Allow you to be forgotten or disappeared. We honor you and your survival. And all criminalized and incarcerated survivors in Tennessee, we will not allow you to be forgotten or disappeared. We honor you and your survival.
I'm Jennifer.
Good evening. I'd really like to thank all of our amazing organizers for this vigil and the events that will follow. It will continue through tomorrow morning and into the opening of our special session. And before everybody gets too settled into my words, I'd like to invite you to actually come together just a little bit more. We tend to be a little bit spread out, and there's a little piece of an interactive. So as we come together this evening to honor survivors of sexual and domestic assault and violence, During this short time that we're together, 60 Americans will be sexually assaulted. Of those 60, 10 of those victims will be children under the age of 12. 20 will contemplate suicide, and 8 will actually attempt to end their own lives. Now, cognitively speaking, we've all heard the statistics. We understand the scope of the problem. We know that out of every 1,000 perpetrators, 995 go free. We've been systemically trained to not believe the victim. And worse, if we choose to admit that something might have happened, we blame her. We've all heard it. What was she wearing? Why was she there alone? How many drinks did she have? Why didn't she report? That last question really gets me. Didn't I just say that out of every 1,000 perpetrators, 5, I can count on one hand 5, will ever be convicted and serve time? While rape kits are backlogged for decades, and victims are forced to pay the processing fees. Meanwhile, her life is made a public spectacle and she is victimized again and again and again. We all know the story of the victim and the excuses that we make for the perpetrator. The perpetrator. Really? That's what we call the monster that preys on the vulnerabilities of another human being. We've looked to his accomplishments to excuse his transgressions. Locker room chatter. Boys will be boys. We may even go so far as to say it was a moment of weakness. And all the while our children are watching and learning the value that our society places on one life over that of another. But I digress. We are here to honor survivors. The Cambridge Dictionary defines a survivor as a person who continues to live despite nearly dying, or a person who is able to live successfully despite experiencing difficulties. I'd like for you to take a moment. Look around you. Really look around you. Acknowledge 5 women that are standing near you. Acknowledge them. Make eye contact. If you're feeling comfortable enough, reach out and touch her hand, or gently place your hand on her shoulder. Gather yourselves into your small circles. Don't look away. Focus on your circle. And know that at least one of us in each of your small groups is a survivor of attempted or completed rape. And if you are so moved, please repeat after me. I see you.
I see you.
I believe you.
I believe you.
I stand with you.
I stand with you.
I see you.
I see you.
I believe you.
I believe you.
I stand with you.
I stand with you.
You take just a moment to feel the power, the strength, the resilience that comes with this compassion and this connection. It is through this connection that we can change our culture. And I'll leave you with this quote by Soraya Shamali from her book, Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger. If we say we are scared, it is understandable and easy for others who can focus on what we, as individuals, can do to avoid feeling fear, instead of what they communally can do to stem threats. Let us focus communally on what we can do to stem threats.